Welcome to the Endangered Species Project all. We're going to do a project overview today and get you started on doing your individual professional research. I'm going to ask that all of you explore all of the subpages for the Endangered Species Project. The subpages include project information, ecologist, zoologist, conservationist, project management sheet, the grading rubrics, web page information, persuasive recovery plan information, project timeline, which will be the due dates as they are posted in Google Classroom, and the daily lessons. Let's first take a look at the project information page together. Your research team of 3 students needs to choose an endangered species. This is a link to IUCN Red List, and it gives you the level of endangerment. Your endangered species must be vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered. Your endangered species must also be approved by the senior project manager, myself, on a first-come, first-served basis. No 2 groups can have the same endangered species. As a research scientist for the federal government, you will be conducting research to educate yourself about an animal's habitat, reproduction, future, history, appearance, behavior, enemies, and survival. Each team member will choose between the following roles: ecologist, zoologist, and conservationist. Then complete the individual background research. Explore the roles of ecologist, zoologist, and conservationist on the subpages. You should also have chosen a team lead. This person is the one that will be responsible for updating the project management sheet. The project management sheet is where links to all of your research will be added. I will give further instructions on this individually to the project leads. Each group will be producing a web page that highlights all critical information about your endangered species. This is due on the 20th of next month. Once you have successfully completed the individual research, you will be working with your team to form a lobbyist group that will develop a 5-minute persuasive plan of recovery to facilitate the removal of your organism from the endangered species list. This recovery plan will be due on the 29th. The first part, the individual research, will be due on the 8th, which is next Friday. Let's take a look at each one of those roles and the research for each profession. Ecologists will primarily be looking at habitat, which includes the ecosystem, geographic distribution, and what is happening to the species habitat. You'll also be looking at enemies and survival. What does it eat? And the types of symbiotic relationships that it has with other organisms in nature. Here is an example research page for the ecologist. You'll be looking at abiotic and biotic factors. You'll be looking at the geographic distribution. Where does it actually live in the world? What is happening in your species habitat that has put your animal at risk? What does the animal eat? So creating a food web and listing all the different food sources. Symbiotic relationships. Symbiotic relationships, you have to think back. It's relationships like parasitism, predation, commensalism, mutualism, etc. You'll notice that in the right-hand column over here, it says URL. That is the link to the web pages where you obtain your information. Okay, that is what the ecologist is looking at. Zoologist is going to be looking at anatomy, reproduction, and behavior. Here is an example of some research done by another group. They found the common name sea otter, the genus and species, which is its scientific name. They broke down the anatomy. they are going to be finding a diagram of the anatomy that has all parts labeled, broke it down into lifespan, special traits, etc. They then went into reproduction, looking at mating season, age, mating, any rituals, gestation, birth, carrying, size, looks. And this is the difference between infants and adults. They then looked at behavior. Is it solitary? Does it live in groups? Any unique behaviors, diet, human interactions, and some other helpful information. Zoologist, or conservationist, sorry, is going to be looking at reasons of endangerment, timeline of endangerment, human importance, how many are left, and government interventions. And again, there is a link to some example research and the type of information that they are looking for. The timeline of endangerment can be found on IUCN Red List. Okay, so that is the first part of the assignment that is again due on the 8th. And down below is a list of some good websites to help you get started. So these are just your starting points of where you're going to be looking for research. As you're conducting your research, you want to be looking at these standards because you're going to need to be able to answer these when you create your web page. For example, you need to be able to construct an explanation that predicts patterns of interactions among organisms across multiple ecosystems. You're going to have to explain how it's interacting with other organisms. So this is where we're talking about the competition, predation, mutualism, etc. So take a look at the standards, and as a group, you will have to be able to answer all of those. Now, while there are 3 professions, you will be assigned a document for every single one. You as an individual do not have to do research for every single profession. That is why we are in groups of 3. So if, for example, you are the zoologist, even though you've been assigned documents for the ecologist, zoologist, and conservationist, you would only be doing research as the zoologist. In fact, in Google Classroom, when the assignment is posted, you can delete ecologist and conservationist and only keep your zoologist page. All right, and of course, if you have any questions, be sure to ask in class or by email.